Welcome to Mindset Lessons from the Field. I'm your host, Gina Kazaza. Before we get started, quick invite to join our free Substack community. We got monthly book club. We got articles to boost your mental fitness and resilience. We got a group chat going on because growth is easier when you're not doing it alone. So come on over and join that Substack community. Also, if this show hits home, please leave a rating, share it, follow us on Instagram, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Thank you guys so much. Now, one more thing before we dive in, quick shout out to our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Empowered Lit Literacy and Beyond. It's a 501c3 nonprofit bringing author visits and confident building programs to kids. Right now, only 30% of kids are reading at grade level. Gosh, that's a scary number. And confidence drops at the age of 7. Empowered Lit is changing that, but it takes partners like you. Literacy is the entry point. Confidence is the outcome. Learn how to support them in the show notes. Today's guest answered the call after 9/11 and spent years operating at the highest level as a U.S. Navy SEAL with SEAL Team 7. When an IED in Iraq nearly took everything, he chose resilience over retreat, turning pain into purpose. After recovery, the mission continued. He went on to found nonprofits, that's profits, by the way, focused on burn care, veteran support, and helping service members and first responders rediscover identity, discipline, and community beyond the uniform. Today, he bridges the gap between elite military service and the civilian world through leadership, seeking, and podcasting. He also has his very own podcast, which I would love for you guys to check out in the show notes. So check that one out. It is Frogman Friday. And his name, ladies and gentlemen, without further introduction, is Ryan Birdman Parrott. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm really excited. You have a great podcast, by the way. And again, I'm going to say it. So anyone that's listening, check out his podcast. He was also on Security Halt, which we had Denny on the show as well. So, great stuff there. Obviously, I do need to start with why Navy SEAL? Did you have an idea that you were going to become a Navy SEAL?
Yeah, so I love telling that part of the story. Growing up, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. We play ice hockey right when we were born. So that was pretty much my thing. And that was my only thing. Failing just about every subject in school. I didn't care about school. I wouldn't say I had a tough upbringing. Parents divorced when I was 5, so it wasn't the easiest time trying to figure out, navigating that. But what really was difficult was because my parents divorced so young that I had to move from family member's house to family member's house. We moved in with our grandparents. And so all this moving, I never got to really establish relationships or friendships because I had no communication skills. And so it was something that I really yearned for early on in life was friendship. And that's why I say I'm a collector of people today. I don't collect things, I collect people, which is great because that works in every demographic of life. I was in middle part of high school, so I was a sophomore, and I was failing all these subjects. And a teacher of mine who was a Marine in Vietnam, his guy was 100 miles an hour. His name was Thomas Barnes. Shout out Thomas Barnes. He's retired now. Living the good life, but Marine in Vietnam, run around the room with the American flag every day, super psychotic, just like Marine Corps. Everything was crazy and 100 miles an hour. One day he came in, stood before the class, held the American flag in his hands. And instead of going crazy, he just said, ladies and gentlemen, there's only one thing better than the Marine Corps, and that's the U.S. Navy SEALs. And it was about the first time, now mind you, sophomore year of high school, I think it's the first time that I actually paid attention to words that a teacher had said. But I listened to him talk about the Navy SEALs. And by the end of this discussion, it was so riveting, so mind-bending. I'm like, oh my God, I got to stay after and talk to him. So I stayed after class, said, Mr. Barnes, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. And he started laughing at me. I'm like, you can't laugh at me. You're my teacher. And he's like, dude, you're not even passing my class, and it's an elective. How the hell are you going to pass the hardest training in the United States military? I'm like, I don't know. And he said later on, years later, he would say that he saw a fire in my eyes when I was talking about it that he had never seen from me before. So he said, I promise you I'll get you some material on it so you can read further. The next day I showed up to class and there's a Reader's Digest magazine sitting on my desk talking about the making of an American warrior. A guy by the name of Jeff Wright, who was a Marine, got out and then went into the Navy to see if he had what it takes to survive SEAL training. And that told me everything I needed to know. If it's that hardcore that this honorable Marine would go after it, I really want this. But at that point in my life, it was all talk. All I wanted to do is tell my parents I'm going to do this. And, you didn't brag about it. because nobody knew what a SEAL was back then,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so this was like late 90s. So, I was just talking the talk, wasn't walking the walk. And I remember it was 9/11 happened, and I was sitting in this typing class, and they said that it was a potential or a possible terrorist attack. And all of those people, you knew they were dead. And so I felt this anger and this rage inside of me, like most people did. Not the best way to go join the military. Nevertheless, I went and did that. I went to the recruiter station right then and there. I was too young to sign up, so I had to wait 6 months. But I signed up in the delayed entry program, and then that gave me a free membership to the YMCA. And so at that point, every day after school, I was in the gym, running, lifting weights, swimming, doing everything I could, calisthenics, cardio-wise, without a real plan, but just going after it, saying, all right, I'm doing this. It was very surprising along the way in that gym. I started to see people that were fast swimmers, and some of the dudes were really big and muscular. There was one particular guy who was massive, and I said, man, you're a huge guy and you're only curling 30 pounds. What gives? And he goes, it's not about, breaking yourself. It's about maintaining. And so he taught me some really good principles right out of the gate. But I used all this information, and I shut down my life completely. I even stopped playing hockey. All I did was focus on training, and I'm so grateful I did, because it gave me my shot.
What are some of the principles that he taught you that, helped you with moving forward?
The weightlifter or my teacher?
Mm-hmm.
The weightlifter? Well, honestly, he said I got big because I was doing the stupid stuff. I was training hard. I was pushing the weight I shouldn't have been, improper workouts, improper movements. And that's the key, is really working on perfect form.
Mm-hmm.
Working on perfect form. You should not be able to lift that weight if you're doing perfect form. So finding out what your perfect form looks like first, your baseline or your foundation, and then you can start adding to it. So building that into muscle memory as I need form. And that's exactly what I did. Now, years later, that would go completely out the window when I saw SEALs that were much bigger, and I'm like, I got to beat them. Form went out the window, and I tried to chase it and would end up getting hurt several times. Honestly, form was key. And that the whole thing to my life, and it goes back to it, is he taught me about perfect form. And in life, everything is foundational.
Mm-hmm.
We get so smitten by the biohacking and the real futuristic science that gets us fixed quick or healthier, faster, or more energy or whatever, but we're not treating the root cause of the problem. And so with people working out, training, and they're doing it with the proper form or the basics, they're going to succeed. And those basics are what will carry you through life, not of the other stuff. So that was the biggest takeaway I had from him. And then, now looking at it 25, 30 years later, for me, it's all about proper form, but it's also about just maintenance. I don't need to be 500 pounds of muscle and look like I'm on the cover of Muscle magazine. I need to make sure that I can be mobile and move around for my kids, for my health and safety, all that stuff.
You talked about struggling and failing everything, right? And you do have to pass a test, academically, right? It's not like you can just it's not all fitness. So how was it just in school because you just didn't try? Or for me, I really struggled in school, could not pass a test because I just really struggled with comprehension. I couldn't understand. It was a whole new language every time. And for you, and on that also then falls back on my training, right? I didn't really know how to study. No one actually teaches you things like that, right? So for you, how did you then academically pass the test?
So it was never about test taking for me. I understood the material.
Mm-hmm.
I never turned in my assignments, ever. And so when I would get home from school, I was go into my own dream world, and I'd go and play hockey or I'd do whatever. But I got really good at hiding that I wasn't turning in homework for my parents until report card season came around. But it was always about just not completing the mission or the task, putting the work in. So I understood the material, but I also was bored with it. I didn't see any relevance. This is something I say to kids that are starting up, because they ask me to come speak a lot to children, which I find so ironic considering I used to be the kid that would need somebody to speak to me. And I actually still do at times. For me, looking at the academia, when I look at math, say geometry, for instance, when we are assaulters on a SEAL team, when we go into a house, it's all math. It's all geometry. It's the game of angles. So if somebody tells me on a piece of paper, this is geometry, I don't see any relevance to it. It makes zero sense to me as far as why is this applicable to my life? Mm-hmm. But now fast forward, take it into a three-dimensional scenario of target, and you have to go hit that target, and the best way to attack it so that you don't get killed. All the sense in the world. Now math becomes fun. Now it becomes very interesting. Now I really want to dive deeper. So I think that's a missing thing in academia and studies today is understanding the three-dimensional application of why you're learning this as opposed to just paper assignments.
Gotcha. You're right in the sense of when you enjoy it or like you have a purpose for it or something like that, it's easier to understand and comprehend. But it sounds to like, on the fact that like you just didn't turn things in, like how did you then develop discipline for yourself to go to the gym, to focus on form, to get ready for where you had to go, especially when, you're not going to want to?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think everybody has their thing, their time when things click for them, right? And I always considered myself, and I still do this day, a late bloomer. If I'm not interested in it, good luck. It's not happening. But if I'm interested in it, I'm in, all in. When I finally had my thing that I was, wanting to fight towards or go for, up to that point, I knew I was not going to make the NHL. I certainly wasn't getting accepted to colleges other than community. So I'm like, there's no path for me. So there's no real want to really excel. But then I finally learned about this and I said, my gosh, these guys, they sound so incomprehensible, but this is something I want. So that's my thing. And now I have something to achieve or go for. And I knew that the odds were stacked against me, just like everybody else who goes through the program. But I'm just grateful enough that my parents had raised me to at least give it a try. I think that's a problem, is that a lot of people would want to do it, but they just get too fearful of the outcome. Maybe I won't make it. And that's not a good mindset in life. The people who say, I'm going to risk it because the outcome could be awesome are the ones who succeed far greater. And it taught me a lot just going through that particular scenario for the rest of my life to actually go for it all the time.
I think one of the hardest, I speak to kids for a living. That's what I do. And, I talk about learning how to control your mind and how you're not your thoughts. You're the observer of those thoughts, right? And when I went through Team Eagle 1, the Navy SEAL prep program, it was like every single part of me wanted to quit. Like there was no desire to ever become a Navy SEAL. Just wanted to become strong. I wanted to be physically and mentally. That was it. That's why I was there, right? And I just knew every single time if I was like going to quit when my body was in so much pain. My mind was telling me I'm horrible. I'm not good. It's not like it was wrong. But then it was just don't quit, right? Because then you're going to prove to yourself that that you're not resilient. You're not strong, right? But it's really challenging to shut that off. It's really challenging to not listen to those thoughts and those sounds. Now, at that time, I was 31. So by that time, I knew how to control my mind and I knew how to feed it opposite things, right? And for me, it was singing. I would just sing in my head. I would sing a song that was positive, that would just get me going, because none of it was fun. I was like, people find this fun? None of this was fun, right? Where all the guys were this is so fun, right? But for you at 18, 19, 20, how do you control the mind when it's telling you to quit, when your body is physically tired, when you're having these doubts, on all that stuff? How do you keep on going?
So it's a combination of a ton of things. I think what's interesting is, coming from a home, we call them a broken home. I'm an only child. So when I'd come home from school, a lot of times I would have to, just play with my own toys and be in my own head instead of going out. Now I did play with friends eventually, but when you learn to internalize things, you learn how to cope and you learn how to get through certain things. I also come from winter state. And so cold weather, it's not easy for anybody, but it's easier for us in the north who come from this stuff. But more importantly, I think when I never had tested myself to this level. Obviously, anybody had. But when you show up, what you look at, what I looked at was there was a guy to my left and a guy to my right at all times. Any day of the week, they may be stronger than me, faster than me. They're never better looking than me, but that's a whole nother story for another podcast. But so what if they are? Why can't I be just as good as them today? And so that was the consistency. And then every time that I would look to my left or right, during Hell Week, it would be a new guy. So somebody would go and quit. And so I'm like, well, wow, I can't believe he's gone. But at the same time, wait a minute, I'm still here. And so I can keep going. And I'm going to keep going. But I made a promise to myself, and that is a key thing that I say to everybody is, when is the last time you made a promise to yourself and you actually kept it? We make promises to everybody around us, our family, our friends, business, every single day that we try to adhere to, and we leave ourselves in the dust. But I made a promise to myself because we are just as important as the promises we're giving to others. So I made a promise to myself that I would call my family after Hell Week, regardless of the outcome, but that I'm going to give it everything I got. I'm going to make that phone call and I'm going to tell them that I made it. And so during times in Hell Week, when it started to get pretty rough, where everybody's freezing and you're miserable and you're like, oh my gosh, we're only in Tuesday. We got to go to Friday. Then you're in Wednesday and you start to get delirious by Thursday. You have no clue what day it is. You're like, like we're trapped. It doesn't matter because I kept telling myself I'm going to make that phone call. And so I call it the spark. That's my spark. That's what drives me past the point of where my body says stop, because your mind's very strong. It's way stronger than your body. And so you tap into your brain and stop making it a physical thing, but more of a mental. Take your time, breathe through it, and keep that promise to yourself. And I use that in my life in general, because up to this point, SEAL training would seem like it's the hardest thing I ever had to encounter, or some people might claim it might be war, but it's definitely not. Years after my service is when I went through a very deep rut and I had to dig deep and make promises to myself again. So it's something that we can all do and continue to do. But finding your spark, it's not about what, like, okay, cool, I get to call myself a Navy SEAL at the end of Hell Week, or I get to call myself a graduate of Hell Week, and then I graduate and I can become a SEAL and I get to call myself a SEAL. No, it's why. Why is that so important? And that's a question I always ask everybody, especially guys that want to go in the program. Mm-hmm. But in general, people in business, as I'm getting to meet them, and say, what drives you? What's your why? So it's a very important conversation.
Yeah. It's a conversation that we don't really have with ourselves. For myself, with the nonprofit that I'm running, I just started writing down like our values and adhering to all that stuff. So, we could hold ourselves to that standard and that promise, right? Which not a lot of people are doing, or businesses are doing, So the fact that you did it at such a young age is very, very impressive. Let's talk about, first of all, this is just for me to want, were you winter or were you summer?
Winter Hell Week.
You were. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now you mentioned it earlier on the show, like it was, it's cold, obviously it's freezing, right? But, you come from the north. Was it like, I don't know, horrible? Like absolutely, like were you, winter wise? Like,
I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference at that time between going through a winter and summer Hell Week. I mean, the joke is that if it's a winter Hell Week, the cold's going to kill you. So you don't have to really crush them physically. But if you're in a summer Hell Week, the cold's not going to kill you. So we're just going to crush you physically. So there's always some spice to add to it. But I had nothing to bank or go off of. I just, I was in that class going through that Hell Week. And yeah, it got really cold. But again, I kept going back to, one, I'm going to make that phone call to my parents. And then two, this guy's right here. He's still moving. So why can't I do what he can do? Mm-hmm. And that, I think it's a key in life. You don't have to, I always say this, that there are two different types of SEALs. There's the warriors and the doers. And the warriors are these psychopaths that were just born to fight. They're awesome. They're all the guys that we want to emulate. And then there's the doers like me, who I work my ass off to try to measure up and level up to that warrior. And I may never get there, but I'm going to sure try. And so I'm consistently trying to be that person. And that's it. I just look at everybody around me. I say, well, we got a guy over here who looks like Lance Armstrong, and we got over here who looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and both of them quit. And I'm like, none of this makes sense. Like, you can't tell what a SEAL's supposed to look like until you graduate. And so most people meet me and I'm 5'10", 165, and they'll say, you were a SEAL, huh? It's like, yeah, they usually think I'm the kid brother of the SEAL.
We're going to stop right here as we're going to give a shout out to one of our other sponsors, Sphere Emoji. Quick question for you. When was the last time you gave someone a gift that actually meant something? Not another candle or another box of chocolates, a gift where every time they see it, they think of you. That's Sphere Emoji. Plushies with personality. It's saying, I got this for you because you're loved. Or I got this for you because you make me laugh. You're my giggles. You're my Lulu. They are soft, they're comforting, and a daily reminder that that person matters. With Valentine's Day coming up, Lulu is the perfect gift, mini or pillow size. And yes, the pillow size is as comfortable as it sounds. It's my favorite. So go on over in the show notes and find a Sphere emoji that matches your vibe, or just go to sphereemoji.com. Now back to our show.
Let's talk about becoming a SEAL, right? Like, you got your trident, you had that moment. First of all, let's talk about how that felt, because it's like, I want you to go back to that sophomore you of like, I'm going to do this, right? You're talking about it. Then you actually like I don't know, that had to feel really, really good. Did you reflect on that? Like when you were getting pinned, like sophomore you, like when you first had that spark?
Yeah.
Did you call your teacher, by the way?
So I got a story on that. Making it through Hell Week, I got to make that phone call to my parents and let them know that I did it. That was everything for me. Probably more important that point than getting a trident. When you get your trident, it's a closed ceremony. No family, nobody's there. It's just us and the commanding officer of SEAL training. Yeah, I mean, it was just another day for us. Like, cool, we got pinned because you're going to show up to the command and they're going to take it away immediately and all that. So it was a really cool experience. But what was more rewarding is I think it was about 2 years after that pinning. I had just come back from my first deployment and I went home to Michigan to visit my family for Christmas time. And I decided to get in my uniform and had a pea coat on. And I went over to school and knocked on the door and opened his door and I surprised Mr. Barnes while he was in class. And I said, Mr. Barnes, and he said, oh my gosh, ladies and gentlemen, the Ryan Parrott is in the house. He's like, and he told the students how I wanted to be a SEAL. And then he's like, but he didn't know anything. We didn't keep in touch. And so I said, kids, this is what I want you to know. This room right here, sitting here, could change your absolute life because this is exactly what it did for me. And told him the story about how Mr. Barnes influenced me. And I said, and Mr. Barnes doesn't even know this as well. But yes, I am in the United States Navy. And I started unblossing my pea coat, took it off. And when I opened it up, there's my uniform with my trident. And Mr. Barnes started crying. And it was such a reward, right? It was like, thank you for giving me that opportunity because here I am now.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
wow, what a
you're staying
story.
after class. I want to know everything. I want to know all about it.
Wow, that's amazing. Like that's an awesome, especially because he had no idea. You just got back and wow, I like that. That was a great story. Thanks for sharing that one.
Sure.
So how long were you before, accident and stuff? Like how long were you, I guess, SEAL?
Yeah, so that actually happened. I got blown up on my first deployment. So
whoa.
I went through, you go through SEAL training and then the secondary part of training, SQT. So about a year all in there. And then you do an 18-month workup to go on deployment. So a couple years into it before I actually got hurt. But yeah, it's not always the most fun thing to get hurt on the first deployment. However, we all like the joke that I got it out of the way quick. So I could have a nice rest of my career. Yeah, not good times, but I'm able to talk about everything because we all lived.
Okay, what I'm curious too is after that, right? And then you go back, right? You get ready to go back. Like, is there more of a fear of like, because especially at a young age, sometimes you're like, you don't realize it. Like you're not invincible, right? And you feel like you're such badass and then something happens and it's like, wow, I'm actually not invincible, right? And it either changes you to the point where you just don't fear death because you're almost there, or you're more cautious of it because you're almost there.
You're around such high performers that if you were sitting idle by yourself, you may have some similar thoughts. But when you're around high performers all the time, you kind of forget and you just keep moving forward. I knew when I came back from that deployment, because they sent me home early to heal, go to the hospital, all that jazz. But healing up, all I wanted to do was become better at what I did. And so, I struck for sniper school because we are gunfighters, so I wanted to be the best shooter that I could be. And sniper school is where it's at. So I got selected and went to sniper and became a sniper. And so being able to bring that package to the table to deploy just gave me all the more confidence to be good at what I do. But no, I was pissed. It was like, they got one on me. So now I got to go back and I got to I got to level this score out here. Again, not a good way to to think about going into the service just to go kill bad guys. But SEALs are different. We're not there essentially to do humanitarian efforts. We are there to kill bad guys. That's what it is. And so, I wanted to perfect my skill set to be able to do that when called upon. And most importantly, there's more of a fear of not being on deployment with your brothers that are on deployment. You just want to be with them. So if somebody said, you can go to Iraq right now, in the crappiest place with no running water and it smells and you're just with a bunch of dudes that are stinky, or you could be partying in San Diego, California, having fun, doing all this stuff, drinking beer, whatever. I would take Iraq all day long because being with your team is the only place you belong. That's the SEAL team. That's the most. So I had this yearning just to get back to him as fast as I could. And that's why I deployed multiple times after, because the brotherhood's going, I'm going.
So you grew up as an only child. You said you struggled socially, right? So how did you understand being a teammate, and having a team and having someone to lean on, especially if you were someone that was more a lone wolf?
So I always played team sports growing up. So that I think that had a baseline for me.
Mm-hmm.
Showing up to the SEAL community and seeing how professional they were and how well they worked, and just how it was it's not, you don't even question it. You go do it. I was being raised as a child, like a young adult in the SEAL team. So I was getting a ton of gems along the way. And that really built my confidence into this team stuff. Like, you're not the lone wolf. You have to operate in a team setting. We are designed to be a team here. Mm-hmm. And every one of us adds something to this mission set. And if there's a break in that, I could be the cause of that problem. So I'm going to do my part for the team. And they just continually reinforce that. And then training and combat enforce it to the point where I don't ever want to do anything without a team again.
Obviously you do a fantastic job at it, and you understand team because, you're multiple nonprofits. I mean, just one for me is challenging. I can't imagine multiple. And it's all about team. It's literally, you 100% can't do it alone, at all, which I think is, so here's my question then, talking about that, because you're in the civilian world right now doing this. What do you find different between, Navy SEAL team, special forces, versus the civilian side on how they perceive and act team-wise?
The biggest thing was the speed, the pace at which we move by as civilians. So in the team sets the pace, mm-hmm. the community. And as a civilian afterwards, we individually have to set that pace. Everything is taken care of for us. We're in the community. It almost seems simple when you become a SEAL. Life is simple. We have one mission. We're all focused on the same mission, and you don't get paid a ton of money. And the objective is not, you can't do this to make more money and do this op and then you get more money, and do this school and you get tons more money. It's not. So that's out of the window. So when you can push money aside and you're not thinking about financially, do I have enough to put food in my belly? Great. Then I can stay focused on the mission. And when everybody surrounding you is on that same mission, you're going to succeed at a high level. When you get out, that is not even close to being the case. There's a lot of ego in this world. There's a lot of self and I and me. And there's not a lot of speed to target. Let's go get this objective completed. Having to check back. And so meeting people, a buddy of mine is a firefighter. He says it best. He goes, people are shit and firemen are people. So it's an interesting thing to say. So you find this niche pocket of incredibly hard workers and you get out, and now you got to go find that again. And it's not sitting there everywhere. So you really have to sort through it to find that person that's going to have your back and really perform like you will. So I think that was a rude awakening for me. And then just knowing I didn't know what I was going to do as a civilian. So business didn't really excite me. Nothing actually excited me. It was being a team guy that excited me. So when I got out, I made the decision that I was done, but I wasn't excited about the future. And it took me a long time to figure that out.
How long's a long time?
So I'm still going. Mm-hmm. And that was in 2010 I got out. Still working on it. A lot of self-discovery. A big thing that I've been learning lately is that when I was as a kid, I don't think you love yourself because you just don't think about it, right? You don't really care. That's not a focal point. Then you go into the SEAL teams out of nowhere, and you're now focused on a mission set that's way larger than you. That's so fast-paced that you certainly are not giving yourself time to think about yourself. Team only. So I get out in 2010, and I have no clue who I am, and I don't love myself at all. And so I had to do a ton of self-discovery to figure out who Ryan Parrott was, and still work on it because I think there's a lot to each human, but to really identify who I am, not the titles or the accolades. Because it was shocking, I got out and people were praising me for being a SEAL. We were very quiet when I was in. My family knew I was a SEAL, but most people in the world didn't know. And then I get out and people started to hear it in business and they would just put me up on this pedestal. And I laugh because I'm like, if you'd have met me in high school, it certainly wouldn't have been that way. But now there's this responsibility that I have to carry outside of the team. And for a while I did, until I realized that I'm not a SEAL anymore. And I don't believe in this, once a SEAL, always a SEAL stuff. If you're active duty, you're a team guy, you're on the teams, whatever. Afterwards, you got to redefine yourself. You can't just stand on that one thing of, I did this once upon a time. It gets old quick. And so I had to find out through self-discovery what my new mission is going to be, what my why is going to be from here, and who I am. So I've been working on that since getting out, still working on it.
I love that. It's funny when I talk to the kids, I always say, I want you to think of everybody that you love right now. Think of everybody that you love. And then I pause for a little bit, give them the time. And then I go, how many of you thought of yourself? And no one did, and it's funny because I teach that with my nephew. He's 3.5. And I'm like, who do you love? And I'm like, I hope and he always says him. And I'm always like, and then he'll name everybody else. And I'm like, I hope it can, my goal is to keep it that he is still always number one, right?
Yeah.
How do you teach someone? What are some things that you're doing or that you've done since 2010 for self-discovery?
The list is long. Well, I started initially with booze. Thought that was a good self-discovery, right? Hey, I sometimes want to feel something because I felt numb. And then other times I felt I wanted not to feel anything because there's too much chaos. So when I got out for 2 reasons. One, the war was dying down. We weren't doing as many kinetic operations anymore. Secondarily to that, a very good friend of mine who owned a massive company asked me to come in. He wanted me to come to his company, gave me a sweet deal. And so I'm like, this is the fatal funnel. This is where I need to make this decision. I'm going to go give it a shot because these opportunities aren't coming. They're not knocking on my door. When I got to Texas, the company was down 40%. So I never actually took the position. So now I have no job. I have no income. I know nobody here. And I also just gave up a career with legends. And so that's where the drinking came in is I couldn't believe that I had gotten myself into such a pickle. We circumvent this stuff. We pre-plan for these things. We look at contingencies and I have completely nothing. So during that time while I was drinking, and it was just, I never hurt anybody. I was just slowly hurting myself. One day I just said, you know what, I got to get moving here because I'm not going anywhere. And I started developing and creating. Through my creativity is when I really started to find a bit of self-discovery. Okay, this is my type of artistry is by creation. So I don't play an instrument. I can't sing. I don't do any of this stuff, but my creativity, my art comes from my mind of creating different things. And so I started working on things that I thought would be relevant and interesting. And I started writing a book, as every Navy SEAL has to write a book. Mine was particularly on history, though. It was this question I had posed. Why do we do what we do? I'd been asked it so many times. And every time I'd go to answer it, I'm answering it for myself, but almost like I'm answering it for everybody. Mm-hmm. So I went and I was like, I'm going to write a book on history, but I'm going to write a different type of history book. It's not about what, it's about why. And so I asked each soldier in the book, why did they do what they did? And I asked a soldier from every war, from World War II to present day, so it goes all the way back in chronological order, to see if there was any difference over the last 100 years of service. So it's a fun book. It's called Sons of the Flag. You can pick it up on Amazon.
Maybe we'll do that one for book club. We do book club. So
yeah.
Maybe we'll do a book club on that book. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's written by a 5th grader, so a lot of scratch and sniff, a lot of coloring. It's really good. I started to create this history book, and then alongside of it was developing a patent for shooting to make people shoot straighter and farther distance, more accurately with speed. And then I ended up running into an Army Ranger who was severely disfigured from an IED. Seeing his disfigurement and going back to when I was blown up and thinking, I thought at that moment when I got blown up that my face was gone. Because you're in the middle of nowhere, you don't have a mirror to stop and look at yourself. God knows if you're about to get attacked or ambushed. And so I just felt my face and it was damaged, it was soot, it was bleeding, and I thought my face was gone. Well, I healed from it. Sam did not. And so looking at his disfigurement and then asking him a question, what are they doing for you guys today? And he said, look at me. I was like, okay. So I went home and I studied that night after meeting him, and I couldn't find anything to just say, hey, did you know this exists? And we could probably get you there. So that was the catalyst to starting the foundation, as I was yearning to be a part of something. I was just sitting at the ready, wanting to create a team. I needed my why in life. I wanted to support others because, directly or indirectly, it feels really good to help others. It fills your cup for sure. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing all of these things, and that started to slow down the drinking process. But ultimately, I would quit drinking. My girlfriend, who is now my wife, she's like, I think you have a problem. And that really set the tone straight for me. But yeah, I think that for me, it was just all this crazy chaos. So I started with alcohol. And then once I started to sober up, then I started looking at, I don't feel good. Like everything about me doesn't feel good. I don't want to work out. I feel lethargic, no energy. And so that's when I started going to a group called the Center for Brain Health, where they started to do scans on me. And I had to go through this SMART program to learn a bunch of stuff about my brain and how I could actually rebuild my brain. Your brain's a muscle, just like every other muscle in your body, and it can be trained and rehealed. So I went through that. I've been through multiple different other brain treatment facilities, really honing in on traumatic brain injury because I did get a traumatic injury blown up by the war. And then all just the stuff that we do, the concussions, the damage that we get. And so really that, and then I'll fast forward because I know there's lots of other parts of the story, but I started looking at different types of supplementation. This is why I truly believe that God put my wife into my life, because she is insane with her nutrition. She studies it. She helps women postpartum. She really focuses on helping mommies explore opportunities post-birth and get them, squared away to be able to get on their fitness journey again. But it's more than just fitness. It's the whole array of, your sleep, your nutrition, supplementation. And so she started introducing me to the world of clean eating, the world of healthy supplementation. And then really it was psychedelic medicine that really helped me explore new horizons. It's got a big stigma out there. Matter of fact, when I heard about it, I was like, there's no way I'm doing that stuff. Like, I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I'm not going to do the most powerful psychedelics. You can kiss my ass with that. That's crazy. But I started hearing about my teammates going through it, and they come back, and just to hear them talk and hear how they were acting. And they're like, man, I wish I would have done this years ago, because I put myself through so much damage before really stepping up and saying I need to be vulnerable to get better. And enough of the guys that I look up to had done it, and I've seen those changes with them, that I'm like, all right, I'm doing it. And that helped me a ton. So I'm a big advocate for psychedelic therapy in a controlled setting with the right group, for guys that and women who are needing help from trauma. It's an incredible thing.
So much there. So much great stuff. So much great stuff. How, if someone's listening to this and they're feeling lost or they feel broken, what would you say to someone to find their purpose?
It's hard to answer quickly. I think the first thing you have to identify is why things went the way they did. Why are they at the point that they are right there? Because again, we go back to treating the symptoms. We're not treating the actual underlying cause. Mm-hmm. And so you got to look at why things are the way they are. Why do I feel like crap? Well, I went and got a blood test. I found out my testosterone was beyond low, and all the other things in my blood, there was a lot of issues. So finding out these root causes help you move forward in life. Just finding your purpose. The first thing I always say is just if you're connected to a charity, or if there's a charity in your area, get involved with them. Even if it's a small volunteer piece, just get in there, because just helping one person might be that little ignition switch to actually get your fire going again. Helping others really does get you moving. I looked at it as I need to make enough money to survive and thrive. And it was a silly way of looking at it, because I stopped looking at what made me happy. I guess if I had to answer that question, the first thing I would say is I would look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, do you love yourself? And if you can't answer yes to that, then that's where we start. Is we're going to start you on an individual journey to help you find love for yourself again. Because that's when you're going to find your purpose, and you're going to find all the other beautiful things that are happening in your life that we're bypassing. And if you love yourself, then great. And if you don't have purpose, but you love yourself, we'll get your ass on it and go find it. Pretty simple.
So I know it's a whole nother podcast, but I have to ask, because we're talking about love yourself. And you mentioned earlier today, like, there's the guy to the left, the guy to the right, but I'm the best looking one. Can you, I love that, because I literally said this morning, to somebody, I said, he said, there are moments where it's fleeting, where it goes in my mind where I just like, don't feel pretty, And they're like, what do you do? But it's fleeting, where I go, the moment that happens, I look right in the mirror, I look right into my eyes, and I start smiling. And I go, and right after that, I'm just like, gosh, I'm gorgeous. And then that's it. Like, and then it's like, you're in it. And it's like this fleeting, like, it's okay. That thought came in, but I decided not to accept that thought. I decided to redefine that thought. And also it wasn't just me going, no, I am beautiful. It was like, I needed to physically see it. I needed to be there. Right. Because I feel like, especially today, I mean, one of the biggest things I do with the work that I do is build self-esteem. And because we're in this age where we're constantly being compared. And I mean, you just said it earlier. I'm looking to the guy to my left, Lance Armstrong, guy to my right, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and here I am, right? And those thoughts sometimes they're not you. I always tell the kids that. I'm like, you're not your thoughts, you're the observer of your thoughts. So that thought, you're looking to your left, you're looking to your right, all of a sudden that thought comes in. It's like, gosh, I'm not good enough. Or, oh, I wish I was that guy. I wish I had this, all this stuff. And you have to decide, which thoughts you want to own, right? And which thoughts you want to shift. So can you just, I know it's a big thing, but if you don't mind, I can't leave the podcast without that question.
Like for me personally, to find myself, center myself, it's different. It's interesting because I use mine, like my pain or my will to want to move forward through things that my teammates had either taught me or it happened. So, okay, case in point, January 2nd, 2019, I got a phone call from a teammate that my sniper partner took his life. And his name was David Metcalf. And David was what I call my true north. And he was the guy that we could always go to. He was always squared away. He ate clean. He did all the right things. Never got into trouble once. Always was there early, left late. And he was a good sounding board where you knew you could always go to him no matter if you were a new guy or you had time in the service. And he would stop and listen to you and he would give you good food for thought. And so this guy is not only a sniper partner, but also a leader of mine and a mentor. And you think that your mentors are bomb-proof. They're not going anywhere and you can always go to them. And then all of a sudden he's gone. That crushed me. It crushed me so hard. But instead of me doing this, woe is me thing, which trust me, I did a ton of crying with it, but I posed a question, or what are we missing? What are we missing here? I think when trauma happens or bad things come into your head or whatever, you have to stop immediately and ask the question to move through it as opposed to let it take you back with it. And that's exactly what I did. Is there have been plenty of times where somebody had died by any means and I just wallowed in that. I was sad, broken, just let it take me wherever it wanted to take me. But this time I asked a question which took me through that fire into trying to gain some answers. So to this day, I still have my moments where I struggle with stuff, but I always look at the brothers that I've lost and just the people that I want to make proud, including myself. I want to be proud that I accomplished things. I still want to show myself that I've got what it takes in certain regards. But I look at that and I look at these men that are buried in Arlington and in the other cemeteries that don't have the opportunities that I have, and I can't waste it. So I take it in bite-sized pieces. Trauma comes in the door. You can't just suck it all up at once. That's what SEALs are really good at doing. We put it in the box and lock it away, but we never go back to the box. And so by the time we finally get to that box, it's so filled with crap that it's like, I don't want to deal with that. So you just consistently push it away. I take in bite-sized pieces from now. And anytime there's crazy chaos or trauma that comes through, bite-sized pieces. What can I change about today? Okay, I feel like crap right now. I'm going to just go walk. I'm going to go walk for 20 minutes or I'm going to go run a mile. I'm going to do something to just change the trajectory of what I know my body wants to do and my mind wants to do. And it's just going to make me feel just a little bit better. And I'm going to keep implementing those priorities into my life so that every single day I know that something inherently is going to go wrong, but I'm going to be able to overcome it because I'm going to not let it drag me back and I'm going to run right through it. And that's the principle of being a SEAL. We don't wait for the enemy to try to fight us. We go attack. So whether it's a problem or a chaotic situation or something sad, you have to attack that problem right head on. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, I like that. Thank you. And you've been really great. Like literally, like everything that you're saying, I'm just like, gosh, you're really good at interviewing. I mean, obviously you're a host, but sometimes it's different, on the other side of the, of the mic.
It sure is.
This is just curiosity for myself as we're talking. What was harder for you? Would you say surviving the IED or rebuilding your identity?
Identity, percent. I mean, I didn't get a choice in the matter with the IED. So it was quick. It was super, super fast and very, very violent and powerful, but didn't have a choice in that matter. And like I said, it's acceptable to move forward in life pretty quickly because we all lived. Everybody worked together so cohesively. We got them back to the hospital quickly. Everybody got fixed up and everybody survives. Ultimately, a lot of lessons learned, but a good overall outcome. Identity? I mean, I think that is a lifelong stretch. People in their 70s and 80s are still talking about figuring stuff out. And so we got to give ourselves some grace that there is plenty of time and that we don't need to conquer the world nor understand every single thing about us today. There's room to grow and learn. So, but I used to do that. And this is why I feel like I can answer certain questions, because I have put myself through a lot. And intentionally and unintentionally, I'm one of those guys who has to learn the hard way a lot. So I've had to go through these experiences, and I think I'm grateful for it because it gives me a heart for people. Somebody says that person's struggling or on their drinking and whatever. It's like, I don't want to deal with that. No, you don't understand what they're going through. And some people become slaves to these addictions to where they don't even know what they're doing anymore. And you got to have a heart for that stuff. Everybody has a bad day, and there's always going to be somebody in your circle that can help you fix it. And you have to lean on your friends to do so. The time of keeping it bottled up and keeping it to yourself is gone. It's done. You want to live the rest of your life in agony because you're not willing to express your emotions and talk about it? That's on you. But for me, the path forward is to reach out to the brotherhood, which is supposedly who loves me, and ask for help. And that's exactly what I do. And that helps me get through stuff and move forward.
I like how you not only lean on people, but also you work on understanding yourself, which not many people do, or they don't intentionally also sometimes put them through stuff to learn things about themselves. Like for me, I paid to get kidnapped to understand fear, to put myself through understanding fear and what I would go through and what would physically and mentally happen to me. Obviously that's the extreme, but I learned a lot about who I was in that moment. And I say was because like every day I'm a new person, right? And I discover more about me and who I am and all that. But, you have to be able to put yourself through situations to discover who you are. And I want to know, like, what could people do for themselves, like on the daily, to strengthen their mindset, to tackle those everyday challenges, but also for you, like to learn who you are. So that way, when they come, like when those hard times come, it's like, when you're doing this, it's because you're scared. When this is happening, it's because you're in fear. Like you do things for yourself to learn about yourself. But what can we do on an everyday basis to do that? So then when the hard shows up, we're ready for it.
For me, you got to make time in your schedule every day for some quiet. I mean, big key. Everything is chaos. Everything is just 100 miles an hour. We got social media flooding the markets and the internet, and you can get anything on demand now, and you can order stuff, and it's somehow at your mailbox 20 minutes later. And it's like, still haven't figured that out anyway. There's so much going on. There's so much output happening around us these days, so much work that you get consumed, and then you don't realize that you're in the chaos. They talk about rumination, like when you're having a bad day and you start thinking about the stuff that's bad, it starts to get worse for you and you feel like you're stuck because you're ruminating over it. And so you got to make space for quiet every day where you can either do breath work meditation, you can pray to God, you can just sit idle and really let yourself recharge. But you got to make some space for you. And I say this not because I'm the best at it, but because I'm consistently breaking that and messing that up. So I try every single day to, like, when I'm talking on the phone now, I'm walking. No more sitting on my butt. I'm outside walking. Apparently, we're supposed to get hit with a nasty snowstorm. Like, everybody in Texas is freaking out. It's like the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of the universe.
Shut the whole state of South Carolina down. I have 3 speaking events next week, and like the hotels are like, "Won't want to book you right now. We might be losing power this weekend." I'm like, yeah. I was like, what?
Cool. Yeah. Like, let's go get some like igloos then. Let's do it. So on a daily basis.
By the way, just to ask, if someone was listening to this and you gave the advice, silence, how long would you say for them to start? Like, to be like a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Like,
I mean, I think it's not unreasonable to ask for 10 minutes to start. You want to give yourself really, truly time, because I know from my mind, like when I go to be quiet, a lot of stuff floods into my mind. I start thinking and it starts going overbearing, and I don't like being idle. So I have to really shut that down, and it'll take me a minute or two to really settle in. So give yourself the time to truly settle in. And then at the end of the 10 minutes, you're probably going to feel just a tad bit better. You might feel incredibly well. And imagine if you exacerbate that, maybe make that 20 minutes or 30 minutes over time. But you know that you have that time block where you can do it. Quiet might mean I'm going to go, like for me, I'm a skateboarder. Yes, I'm a 42 or 43, I don't even know how old I am, 42-year-old skateboarder. I love going to the skate park and skating, especially with my kids now, but I still like doing it for me. So sometimes quiet might mean me going to the skate park midday when everybody's at work and having the whole skate park to myself and just riding, not talking, just enjoying. it can be anything to anybody, whatever your quiet would mean to you. Sometimes it truly is quiet and isolation. Sometimes it might just be something else outside of the norm. And I understand that it might be more difficult for people who have jobs. They have to be at the office, but you can still find ways to implement this, whether you get up earlier and do it.
Drive time. I love driving in silence. I know
Yeah.
it's like weird. Like personally, I love it. Do it all. Like I have a 5-hour drive ahead of me. Probably like 3 of those hours will be in complete silence, and then the other 2 are meetings. but I just, that's like my silence. But yes, I like that, finding the silence in those moments that are quiet for you, to be at peace, because it is. And the thing is like in this world today where we're moving. I mean, even for me, like enjoying silence, I'm restless. I'm like, I want to make that phone call. I want to touch my phone. I want to text, and it's like, no. We're driving like 100%, like we're eyes on the road, we're focused, right? And that's why I like the fact that I do it when I'm driving, because it keeps me, like complete, like to me, it's dangerous doing anything else, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, whereas when I'm in my room and I'm like in silence and then there's an electronic nearby, it's the temptation. It's just like, it's easier to give into, but I like that. I like doing some silence. That's great advice. We haven't, you'll be over our 100th episode and we haven't heard that one yet. So
nice.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And thanks for being on the show. You're absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. I'd just say don't overcomplicate it. That's something that I'm very good at doing, is overcomplicating everything. Mm-hmm. One thing I'll say about psychedelic therapy, because it really opened my eyes up to a certain area in my life, that let's say you get an email and I'm working and I'm busy, and then an email comes in. I got to answer that right now. I got to get on this. I got to finish that, send it away, right? So we make our life an emergency room. And the last I checked, I don't have a doctor's degree or an MD. So why am I acting like this? Now, I'm not saying blow everything up, but I'm saying quit putting everything on status red alert. And that's what the therapy actually did for me, is it introduced me to the idea that I'm making everything an emergency or everything so important when it's not. And I can stop acting like this. So most of my stress, I'm creating myself, and for people who listen to podcasts and things like that, there's a lot of people who are in a bad place and just not doing well this time of the year, or in general, there's a lot of people that are struggling. And I say, give yourself some grace. We all are human. People are like, well, you don't realize what I'm going through. You don't feel, whatever it may be, or you're a Navy SEAL, whatever. No, I'm a human being, and I still have my anxieties and my fears and my stresses. We all do. That's part of human nature. What separates me from anybody else is I went to BUD/S. That's it. Like, I got a title. But other than that, we still are humans. That's it. And so it works for everybody the same way. The human body wants to heal itself. It wants to be better. It wants to perform. It needs to stay moving. It needs to be fed the right and appropriate things. And so if you take care of yourself and you give yourself a little bit more love, you can actually get to that next level of feeling good. And I always revert back to like an addict. So there's a point in time when an addict says, I've had enough because I'm tired of feeling like shit. And so they quit. And then they go through a very dark phase trying to get sober. Well, then they get on the other side of that, and now they're starting to feel decent. And then they're feeling better. And then they're feeling good. And then they start feeling great. And then there's a point in time during that process where they become bomb-proof, where they're like, I'm never going back to that ever again. It is fortified in concrete now that I will never revert back, because I remember what I went through, and I'm done, and I've gotten to this point now. Well, that's the same thing with your life, whatever it may be. You don't have to be an addict. You might be in a funk. You might not feel good. Every day, if you chip away a little bit at what's eating you, that root cause, there's a point in time where you're going to become bomb-proof again, and then it'll be a distant future, or a distant past, and then you're going to be soaring forward. I always say it's like, be the sniper at tactical patience. You got to breathe through stuff, and you just got to take your time in bite-sized pieces. Don't try to own everything and control everything over one time. And the theory is that we're supposed to live like 100 years, right? So let's try to hopefully shoot for that and try to solve it all within the 100 years.
Thank you. Thanks again for being on the show. Again, it was a real honor. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, everyone that's listening, like, share, comment, subscribe, become a Substack member, join our book club. We may be doing this one. Let me know if you want to do this book in our book club. And all information on Ryan is in the show notes if you guys want to contact, and go and check out his show. See you guys all next Wednesday. Thank you.